Leon.
Hello.
Hello. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, and you?
I'm doing good. You know what, too? And actually, as I was going through and researching, I found an old commercial of yours, and now I want to go have a Stroh's beer in your honor.
Oh my God! I didn't even know they still existed. That was funny. That was a big campaign, and we'd never heard of Stroh's back east. I was in New York at the time, and then the next thing I knew, they blanketed the country, and then they disappeared. I can't get it to California, and I can't remember seeing the last time I saw Stroh's beer.
Yeah, right. Me neither. I saw that and I cracked up though. It brought me back to my childhood, seeing all those commercials.
Yeah.
So the new movie, actually, it's 2 years old now. The Midnighters. I guess it's hitting on video on demand now.
It started at midnight last night. Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
And
awesome.
And I think it's also out on DVD and Blu-ray today.
Cool.
I don't know. Sure, I haven't called any stores, but that's what I hear.
So this was actually like the person you worked with on this, Julian Fort, who wrote the story and produced this. You guys actually like met in a Starbucks. Is this how I'm figuring this out?
Here, I'll tell you because I think this should have been a movie. Because I was in Big Lebowski.
Okay.
When I go into a Starbucks, especially a few years ago, they recognize me, and the next thing I know, I think over the years I've gotten more in free coffee than I have from doing Lebowski. And so when I would come in, people would start conversation. And Julian was quiet, and then all of a sudden he became the one who asked me the most questions. And we began to just have talks about movies. We'd talk about Kubrick for an hour or whatever. And then we began to arrange to meet at closing time. So we would wind up standing out, shivering in the cold, and still discussing movies. And he came to me one day and he said, "I've written a script, and maybe you would like to do it." And he gave me the script, and it was what I call a slasher movie.
Okay.
But it was very well written, and he had a character who suddenly had a long speech at the end of the film, and he wanted me to do that, and I said I'd be happy to do it, that it probably wasn't a movie I'd want to see, but I'd be very glad to be in it, and I told him how well I thought he had written it. Then that sort of fell by the wayside, and about 6 months later he said, "I've written a script for you. Would you read it?" And I said, "Of course." And then we spent about 5 years having a start date and then not doing it, and a start date and not doing it, and a start date and it not happening. And then finally he got together enough money to do the shoot. And then came another 5 years of waiting to get through all of post-production, all of which costs money, and then going to the various festivals, and finding that he couldn't get a theatrical release, and so he wound up doing a direct-to-video. And so for me, this has been like a 10-year thing. For him, it's been his whole life. And, of course, the odd thing is he works as a security guard at Paramount. And I kept thinking this was such a great human interest story that Paramount themselves would respond. But it never got high enough in their hierarchy for anyone who could make a decision to be able to make a decision. About the only perk he got from Paramount was that we used their parking lot, which is high up in the air, for one of the central scenes.
Okay.
And we had a meeting, a scene where all the Russians and the heroes meet, and that was shot, oddly enough, in the Paramount paint shop.
Oh.
It had the right feel and it looked right, and so we shot there when no one was working. And those are the only two times that Paramount was involved, even though it seems to me they could have gotten a great deal of publicity of a human interest kind of way if they had sort of twigged what he was up to.
Wow.
But we never got that far.
No, I mean, this for 10 years, especially early on, did you think, like, being the fact that it was his first time going through this, like, this is never going to happen, or just maybe, like, this, maybe he's just kind of, like you said.
He was so determined. He was so determined that I was sure that he was going to do it. I just didn't know if he'd do it in my lifetime.
Right.
I used to make jokes about how this would be released as a posthumous movie, but because I was 72 when we shot it, and I'm now pushing 77.
Oh wow!
So
okay.
And of course since then I wound up doing a single scene in a movie that was #1 this year for 3 weeks running. A Quiet Place.
Yeah.
And that was it just fortuitously. It just happened to come out a week before on direct video, a week before this one.
So it's good to kind of piggyback off of that as well.
Well, I tried in my interviews for that. I kept mentioning the Midnighters to make sure that they would be aware of it. But we'll see.
So this
is the first day.
Well, this, it sounds like, too, like, this became kind of like a passion project for you.
Well, when I read the script, I just went, my goodness, this is a great gift, because I normally play like the third or fourth guy in a film. And I'm in every scene of this film.
Right.
Virtually every shot. So it was like a great present, So naturally, I felt passionate about it, and incredibly grateful to Julian for having written it, and for all the work he went through to try to get it done.
Right.
My big hope is that there'll be enough video hits and enough streaming and enough videos sold that he can make his money back.
Right.
The goal is always for him to be able to make another movie, to establish himself.
Now, being the fact that it was
I hope that worked.
I think it will. I got to watch it earlier. I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a hard sell, though, because who wants to watch a geriatric do what you can watch a stunning young guy with abs do? It doesn't. It flies in the face of current what most people want to see right now. Come on.
You could have showed off your abs, and it would have sold even more.
I'm sorry? Oh, yeah, right, of course. But yes, it did become a thing of passion, and it became so for all the other actors. Like the fellow who plays my parole officer, we had just done a play together. And I called him and asked him if he wanted to be in this film, and he said, where do I park and what do I wear? So almost all of us, in some fashion, knew each other from before, and we had our pick of all of LA's good actors that are not stars, and so we were able to get people to do things that they are enormously overqualified for, but that they were willing to do because we all knew each other.
Right. Now, being the fact that you were, I mean, this story was written for you. You're the lead. Did you feel any pressure that was put upon you to do this?
Well, oddly enough, there's a great relief when when a thing's been written for you, because all of a sudden you go, oh, it's time to do, and Julian kept reminding me of it. It's time to be a leading man as opposed to a character, which means that for once in my life I didn't have to come up with an accent or what I call professional deformations, which is where lawyers have certain things in common that you always have to hit if you're going to play a lawyer and things like that, right? But
right.
This was a piece written. I mean, I could take things in my life and they sort of fit. Like
right.
If you spend 35 years in prison, that's not unlike spending 50 years in Hollywood not being a star. There's so many ways that you could take your own life and use it. And also, we had to work with such speed that I had to know exactly what I wanted to do in each scene. And of course, one of the things that I discovered right off was if you're the lead in a film, you don't have to carry it. You can give every scene, in terms of if it were a competition, you can give every scene to the actor you're playing with because you're in every scene.
Right.
And it's their moment to shine. And that gives you a great relaxation, a great freedom, because you go, okay, it's in your court now. You're carrying it. And so I had to just be sort of the still center around which everything moved, And that's a great feeling. But every time I would do something character-y, Julian would remind me that this is a leading man. It's an older guy, but he's a leading man.
Right.
He's not a quirky character. And so a good deal of the acting amounts of the playing of this particular part amounted to hiding a lot, because you don't know what's going on in Victor's mind most of the time, except that you know his situation, but you don't know what he's up to, And what appealed to me in it was, aside from the fact that it was a wonderful present to be given to me to play a lead, was the what it's like to be 35 years out of action and come back into this economy,
right,
and try to figure out how the fuck you're going to survive, And then just when you think that the film's going to be a depressing film about poverty and old age and trying to fit into a society that you have no place in, the sun arrives on the scene, and it becomes, he has a purpose. Suddenly,
right.
Victor has a reason to live. And then, of course, there's that fly in the ointment of does his son even like him?
Yeah.
Or is he playing a game on him?
Right.
There was a lot of discussion that, fortunately, I did not participate very much in because I was busy learning lines. There was a lot of discussion at one point. My son had a wife, and we shot scenes
Okay.
with her. And there was a whole feeling that perhaps the two of them were doing a con on me. And I think that somewhere along the line, Julian decided that that wasn't fruitful. You can see traces of it in the film. You can see how well, the confrontation at the very end wouldn't work if you didn't have some suspicion that there's something odd going on between the two of them.
Sure.
Does that make sense? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so that was fascinating. I think it had more to do with the way Greg played my son than anything I was aware of. And there's something unique in this film that I've never seen before, too, which is that we get towards the very climax of the film, and then you get a rush of very rapid flashbacks that explain to you what they're up to. Usually those kind of things are placed very far in front, just like exposition. Whereas in this case, it was like, what you don't know is, and I thought that was pretty clever. And I suspect that had as much to do with what happened when they got into the editing room as it did in where they were going to place those flashbacks initially. So one of the things I discovered is that there are so many movies that go into making a single movie. I mean, there's the movie that the writer has in his head. There's what he gets down on paper. There's what you actually shoot.
Right.
And then there's the edit when they go in, and a whole story can change during the edit. Not
right.
Hopefully not enormously, or else you probably shot the wrong stuff. But it was interesting to see that process at work, to realize that the film gets made like 4 or 5 times in the process, and you think you've got this film, but now you go, oh no, if I nudge it this way, it changes this way. And that was fascinating, because I kind of knew that, but I'd never seen it from the inception of the idea all the way through to the release, because I usually come in and do 2 weeks on a movie, instead of 10 years.
Now, were you involved in a lot of the behind the scenes part of it, or were you just more or less, like you said, focused on learning all your lines for the most part?
Well, when we were at work actually shooting, I focused only on just being an actor. But prior to that, we had long discussions into the night, and we had long discussions about casting. So I participated a great deal in the lead up to the film. But then once it was about acting, then I focused only on that.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
And of course, there's the negotiation constantly of whether you're going to alter a speech on the day you shoot it, or whether you're going to say it exactly as written, or whether you're going to do both and give the editor those choices. Or, with some very experienced directors, you purposefully don't shoot things that you don't want the editor to see, because a lot of directors really hate the talking heads phenomenon. Where you just see shouldered up shots of 2 people talking. Right. And so they just won't shoot them. They'll shoot one long master shot that they think does it all. But you have to be a very experienced director with quite a lot of clout to get away with that, because usually there's a boss that's saying, I need this footage because I want to make sure that we've got everything covered. If you're making your own film the way Julian was, you don't have a boss, which is really nice.
Right.
It puts you in the position that the Coens have contrived to stay in all their career, where nobody tells the Coens what to do. You take them on. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, how about you personally, getting into the mind of Victor preparing to play that role. Was there any like research that you did? Did you talk with any like ex-cons who have gotten out of jail to kind of see like where their head was? And
not really. Because when we finally got around to time to shoot, things were happening very quickly. And this is about the situation that he's in when he gets out, you know?
Right.
I talked to some people about, he talks about his problems, just how he keeps continuing to hear things from the prison in one early scene. And so I talked to folks about that, about what's the routine. But as far as his central problem of going, what am I going to do with my life when I'm not qualified for anything? I know a lot of people who are in that predicament without ever having been in prison. They just, they reach a certain age and they're not ready to quit, but they don't really know what they're going to do next, and or whether they will survive, because economics have gotten very weird for folks. And after the 2008 crash, there were tons of people who just lost all their retirement money. So I felt, and I was in an orphanage when I was a kid, which is very organized and very isolating. Your life, you're told what to do all the time. So I could play with that. But as I've gotten older, I find that I don't really need to do the research if the script is written well. The words will tell me where I am.
Right.
And I depend a whole lot on my intuition because I've lived over 75 years, and I begin to kind of know how I would react if I were in this situation. It's a kind of it's what actors call a magic if. If I were this person, and if I were condemned to say these things that I personally would not say, if I were, what would that make me? And that will get you a whole lot further than a lot of research will sometimes get you. Everything and not be able to express it. So I use a more direct route of just going, okay, this is me in this situation. How the hell will I deal with it?
That's interesting. Now, the one thing too, like one of the scenes that really like stood out, and I honestly felt was like so powerful, and it wasn't even, there was no lines in the scene. It was just you and your facial expression, and that was the scene when you go to meet with the girl, and you end up going into the bathroom, and you end up just sitting on the toilet, and like your face, it was just so powerful, and what like was going through your face, and it was just like wow.
Yeah, well, what I called that scene the death of I was using a highfalutin word and saying the death of an erotic life, but basically it's he's reluctant to go see that girl because he doesn't know how he'll behave, and then he gets there, and she is so beautiful, and she is so young, and she's so sweet that any involvement with her would just be putting her to use as a receptacle,
Right.
Right. And he just can't do it, and that, of course, throws into question everything to do with his manhood.
Right.
It's like a really ghastly defeat to sort of go, I will probably never have sex again in my life, which I think which I think is what he's feeling at that moment, is that
right.
sex is no longer viable for him, and that's if a man gets to that point, and I don't know that very many men do, but if a man gets to that point, that's a biggie. That's a big thing to deal with.
Sure.
And so that's what you're seeing when in my face is the it's yet another brick wall, like the economics. That,
right.
He's finding that all aspects of his life are sort of defunct. And how do you stay a person and have a life when everything that you based your life on is falling apart?
Right.
So he literally means it, I think, when he goes, I felt better off inside.
Mm-hmm.
Because at least that was a norm that he could be accustomed to. And he's getting 3 square meals a day.
Right.
In prison. So there were a lot of good things if you compare them to what was going on in the film. And then, of course, everything changes totally when he has the problem of trying to save Danny.
Yeah.
Because he's not sure he can. And so I think that's what the thing at the end is. At the end, I have no idea where that goes from there. I mean, they have a lot of money, or a lot of gold that they've got to convert into money. And I have no idea. To me, the ending is a great question mark.
It's one of those mysteries that they left us hanging. So that means there needs to be a Midnighters 2 now.
Well, that would be nice, but I don't know where it would go. I mean, what, sitting on the beach drinking pina coladas? I really don't know.
Hey, if they can make 9 Fast and the Furiouses, they can make a Midnighters 2.
Yeah. But the biggest problem is solved in it, which is that at least he knows that he can buy, that he can live. He knows he can pay for things now.
Right.
That's another thing that I find. I never really sat down and discussed with people the film because I was so inside it that I never really knew how to talk about it from the outside. But from the outside, there are a number of things that are never questioned, like the young Russian boy that gets killed. It happens very quickly. Danny has a moment of clearly very disturbed by it, and I sort of go, we got to get out of here. And we don't know how that's going to end. I mean, somebody was killed.
Yeah.
I think in the watching of the film, most people just sort of pass by that because we passed by it.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a number of mysteries like that. Are Danny and Victor going to be able to actually relate to each other, or are they just going to split this up and split from each other?
Right.
There are a number of things that are just not answered. But I think that's true of most films where you raise a lot of questions, but you don't answer them all because then it's just more like filling out a form.
Right.
And having something that feels like it's alive.
Right.
I find quite often with independent films that one of the mistakes they make is they try to answer all the questions, and that means they've got to make their script twist and turn in ways that are mechanistic as opposed to having a feel of life.
Right. Very nice.
I think that's why when we see a good one, we get so excited. I mean, first time I saw a John Sayles movie or a Coen Brothers movie or a Wes Anderson movie, and you just go, oh, oh, that's different, you know, because they don't answer all their questions.
You got to just give those little bird crumbs and not give the full meal to everybody.
Right, right.
Very nice.
Well, I'm glad you saw it. I thought that I would be speaking to someone who hadn't yet seen the film. And
nope. I
thought, oh my, how do I talk about that?
I watched it this morning. This way I was all ready.
Oh, cool.
So I want to thank you. I know you have another interview coming up any minute. So Leon, thank you for taking time out to do the interview. I really did enjoy the music.
Oh, sure.
And
I
we'll
hope
get all
there's
this out there.
something that's usable. I hope you find something in it that you can use.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right.
I really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.
Mm-hmm. Bye-bye.
Bye.